Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to the Weekly Rundown. Well, there's not that big of a channel update to give you. I mean, board game reviews are still going strong, Expanded Universe review still going strong, podcast still going strong. I think the last Saturday Morning Sandwich Flange came out this past weekend, so be sure to check that one out. And so today I wanted to do catch up. There's been a lot of good questions that were asked that I just haven't gotten around to yet. And it's time to play a little catch up on those questions. Or should I say, put a little ketchup on the... I don't know where I'm going there. Okay, so the first question is, do I check Wookiepedia a lot when I'm doing Matt's Expanded Universe? The answer is no, not that much. It's probably about 20% of the time is when I check Wookiepedia. Let me break down for you what all I'm going to do. I usually, to get all my information, I have tons of... I look up interviews online. I look at interviews from the Star Wars Insider that I remember seeing, and I'll read about them if they can give us a little insight into it. I also use Pablo Delgado's Essential Reader's Companion. I think it's an excellent source for books. It really helps me when I'm trying to pull through it and I want to see some extra stuff. Some of you already know this. I love that book. I think it's one of the best books I ever got. And it has a lot of good stuff about the book, some did you know information that I really enjoyed. So I pull a lot from there. I also pull a lot just from reading the stuff. I mean, that's really how it works, right? Some of the short stuff, the short stories and stuff, they are not on Wookiepedia, or they're like a little stub, like this happened in this adventure, or this happened in this magazine, or this book. It's like there's nothing about the plot point in it at all. Now, of course, the plot points are very simple and little, but they could at least say something about it. It's so weird. So probably, I would say 20% of the time, Wookiepedia. Which Wookiepedia is fine. I like Wookiepedia. I don't have any problem with them. I tried to update stuff on Wookiepedia. Years ago I used to do this, and because I was like, man, I know this answer, or I can expand on this because I know all about this little short story, or this character, or this. Or it was, show us proof of where you found that. Like I had to give them the page number in the book, like they didn't believe me. I was like, guys, I know this. They said, that wasn't in the book. Yes, it was, page 37. And then finally it would go back up on there. It was really aggravating going back and forth with whoever was in charge of that, whether it be the administrators or whatnot, but always wrong format, or something's wrong here, or prove this, you know. And I was like, it's more trouble than what it's worth doing. So I just gave up updating Wookiepedia. Someone else can go up and update Wookiepedia, but I'm definitely not anymore. Gave up on that one. But other than that, though, Wookiepedia is a great source. I'm not downplaying it at all. I think it's really great for a lot of people if they want to read about stuff. But a lot of you have been noticing, you read Wookiepedia and you're like, wow, Matt said a lot of different stuff. Where did he get that information? Like I said, Pablo Delgado's book, Essentials Reader's Companion, multiple interviews either online or in the Star Wars Insider issues that I have. And just by reading it myself, you know, some of the short stuff, that's where I get most of my information for those videos. The next question I got, and I love this question. You asked me, what is on my reading list? Well, as you know, about a month ago, I read all through, well, not all through, but mostly through a lot of my Star Wars tales, just to make sure I didn't miss any other stories. So what am I going to be reading now? Well, I think I put these in order of when I'm going to read this. Seriously, I had so much fun answering this question. The first book is, of course, the story of Kalervo by J.R.R. Tolkien. As some of you know, Christopher Tolkien, or the House of Tolkien, have been releasing some of his stuff every few years. They released a buttload of it with the History of Middle-earth series, which is fan-friggin-tastic. I never read Children of Húrin until last year. That book came out years ago, but I never read it because I was like, that's just rehashing some stuff they already put out. And then I finally broke down last year. I bought it. I read it. I loved it. And so this was a no-brainer. Now, this is a hardback novel. It is very short, only 163 pages. That means by the time this review posts, I will probably have this book read. And I will do a review on it on Princes of the Universe. This happens, I think, before Children of Húrin. I don't really know exactly in the timeline. I'll have to read it and read up on it. But either way, happy to add this to my collection. I'm pretty sure I'll like it. Be kind of surprised if I don't, because usually everything from Middle-earth, from whatever timeline, I love. So this is first and foremost on my book reading list. The second book is a book that I have read before. It is by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It is, Sherlock Holmes, the official illustrated version. I read this as a kid. I picked this up from my parents a few months ago. They're never going to read it again, so they went ahead, yeah, here you can have it. Look at the gold pages, woo! And it's got a lot of illustrations in here. You can't see, but it makes for very interesting reading. I remember loving this book as a kid. I loved Sherlock Holmes. And remember, this is where the whole official canon, is it canon or not? This is where the first word, canon, came from. Because people who took over after Doyle died, some people don't consider those stories official canon with Sherlock Holmes. They only figured the stuff he wrote as official canon. And that's where the word first got introduced. So, has a little bit of tie to that. But honestly, I just like reading Sherlock Holmes. So, this will be number 2 on my book reading list. Number 3 is kind of a cheat because right after that, I'm going to read The Further Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. This has all the stories that one doesn't, so I should have a complete collection of Sherlock Holmes stories. This one's a lot thinner, so I guess they just couldn't add those last few in. They do have some illustrations, but not as much as those, so I don't know if that was done on purpose or whatnot. But once I finish Sherlock Holmes, it's only logical that I go with The Further Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. This one isn't that long, so it shouldn't take that much to read. But this is my number 3 book on my must-read list. Number 2 is by Paul Creswick. It is called The Adventures of Robin Hood. Now, I've never read this, and I've always wanted to. This is a really nice copy. This one and the last book and the book I'm about to show you, we all picked up from an antique store, and we got it for like super cheap. And they're really nice copies. I saw The Further Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, picked that one up, saw this one, picked this one up, and saw book number 5 on my list and picked that one up too. They look really nice. I've never read Robin Hood, believe it or not. And I can't believe it because back in the day in school and through my parents and going to the library, I read just about every classic. So this one sounds like a classic I've got to read. I love Robin Hood, but I've never read his book. So this is really interesting. So that is my number 4 book, Robin Hood. Number 5 and final, last but definitely not least, I'm saving this one because I know it's good. It is Cooper's The Last of the Mohicans. Now, folks, if you haven't seen the movie, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you haven't read the book, you're doing yourself a bigger disservice because this book is better than the movie. I know that's hard to believe if you've ever seen the movie. And by the way, that soundtrack, it's got to be in my top 5 soundtracks ever. I think the soundtrack's awesome. I'm listening to the soundtrack as I'm reading this, I guess. To be honest, I first read this as a little kid, a few years before the movie came out. We didn't know the movie was coming out because back then you really didn't know what was coming out until you saw a trailer for it. There was no internet back then, kids. And so I remember I just had to read this as one of the classics, and I read it and I loved it. And then we found out a few years later a movie was coming out. It's like, yay! And so we all went, the movie was great. But I remember sitting there thinking, I don't think that's what happened in the book. And I told my dad, I said, no, Dad, this didn't happen, that didn't happen. And I said, I think the book was a little bit better. I didn't want to say the movie was bad, but I just thought, I said, no, the book's really good, but things don't happen this way. Well, then my dad picked this book up and he started to read it. He was like, this is way better than the movie. I can't believe they didn't do this. And so the book is always going to be better than the movie, folks. The movie is fantastic. That's why I say watch the movie first, probably. I don't know. Maybe you should read the book first. I don't know. Viewer's choice. But this is definitely the one I'm saving for last out of all these because I know I loved it the first time. I'm probably going to love it even more now that I'm grown the second time because classics never get old. Now, is this all of the books that I'll be reading this year? Obviously not. These are the books for the summer. My goal is to finish those for the summer. Will I get to it? I don't know. But why the summer? Because when August rolls around, I'll probably be finishing off the last of these on my beach vacation by then. But I am looking forward to 2 Kevin J. Anderson books coming out later on this year. A sequel to the Saga of the Seven Sons trilogy. And a sequel to the Schools of Dune trilogy. And these will finish off both trilogies. Now I'm going to read the Saga of the Seven Sons trilogy first. Because I know I love Dune. I love their Dune books. He has been doing a great job with Dune, and I just know Schools of Dune is going to be one of my favorites. So I'm saving those for last. But that should round up, what's that? That's 5 books there, 6 books there, so that's 11 books for the rest of the year. I think I can handle it. All right, folks. Hey, let me ask you a question. What is on your reading list this summer? let me know in the comments. Oh, and speaking of next week, let's do a live Q&A. Sorry it's been so long. Remember, I have been super busy lately, but the week's starting to open up, some free time now. So next week, I will be doing it on a Monday. We'll be having a live Q&A. And folks, some of you are like, oh man, I keep missing the Q&A, but I really have questions to ask. Here's your opportunity to get those questions answered, even if you're not going to be on the Q&A. In the comments below, put Q&A, or Q and symbol A, whatever you want. And then put a question out there. Any questions that are in the comments before I go live, I promise you, those will be the first ones that I answer on the video. So this, even if you're going to watch the show and you're like, well, I have a good question now, I want to make sure he answers it, put it right here down in the comments below. I will make sure it gets answered. But those will be top tier questions I will answer in next week's Q&A. So, folks, I will see you next time.